Hey, welcome in everyone off of what was a very busy sports weekend for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I am Mike Schaefer. You are listening to Unemployed with Mike Schaefer, and it is Monday. So, of course, Kaleb Henry joins here as we dive into many of those things that happened over the weekend. We probably won't get to, for instance, women's basketball had a really nice win against Rutgers and needed sort of just throttling of a team. I asked Connor Happer, who would know far more than I would about what needed to happen for them to get into the tournament and off the bubble, and he did not know. I don't know if Kaleb would know either, but I suspect a lot of it has to do with winning some games in the Big Ten tournament.
Yes.
And hopefully the fact that they play in a ridiculously deep conference allows them to get like 11 seed somewhere or something.
Yeah, they're going to try to sneak in and probably be one of the last four in. I will say this, whether it's the men's team or the women's team, this is the Husker Hoops Central on where you're going to get the best basketball talk. I know Tuesdays is when you want to do that, but I think Mondays is where we kind of have what many would call the Husker Hoops Central for where you're going to hear the best conversations. But for the women, I'll tell you this actually bothered me listening to the radio broadcast the other day because you had the conversation between Coatney and Greesh, and it was tongue in cheek, and it was like, hey, people ask me, what do they need to do to make the tournament? And Greesh kept going, well, no matter how many games they win, if they hear their name called, they did enough. If they don't hear their name called, they didn't do enough. I'm like, thank you for the brilliant analysis. Like, does winning this game, does it take 2 wins in the Big Ten tournament? Like, let's talk about that. Just, on Selection Sunday, if they didn't hear their name called, well, they only won 4 games this year. We weren't going to know if they were in or not until they didn't hear their name called.
See, that would have been some good free advice. You could have saved that. You could have been like, hey, if you get the opportunity to provide hard-hitting analysis, you should go for it.
No, it's that needed to be right off the bat because I was going to hold in that frustration for 50 minutes, and that wasn't going to be good for any of us.
Amazing. I want to thank Josh Peterson for popping in and fixing our format. Because I hadn't done a good job before the show of making sure we were in the right format. So if he happens to be watching or listening, thank you, Josh, for subtly making us appear bigger on the screen here. All right, everybody. So here's what I want to dive into. We're going to start with the California Cornhuskers, their win against USC. And then we're going to get mostly into some spring football, including the blind rankings, in which I am going to ask Kaleb to rank spring narratives and which ones he chooses to believe in and which ones he may not buy, or at least rank them in terms of maybe it's least favorite to favorite. I don't know. I'm not going to tell him how he wants to rank them. I'm just going to give him 5 different narratives that you are more than likely going to hear, whether it's this team or any team, because it's spring football. There's only so much that can be said, and there's even less that gets to be watched if you're not on the team. So it's an opportunity to kind of dive into some of the, more comical part of this to me a little bit, but we'll get into some actual spring football talk. And I thought, there was some interesting stuff that was said over the weekend, and Kaleb was handling that as always, as he does with HuskerMax. But the story as it has been basically since, I don't know. When do we think people made Nebraska basketball the A1 of their sports life? I know for me, it was roughly like a few days after I was let go from my current or previous employer. I didn't have as much interest in following football in exactly the same way. Maybe the Oklahoma game turned some people onto it a little bit, certainly by Illinois. That week where you just sort of saw the blitz of Wisconsin, Creighton, Illinois in there. I think that was like, oh, there's something here for maybe those who hadn't quite been paying attention. But Nebraska basketball deserves to be front and center. And then went out to California. And I thought, Kaleb, and look, I am not a smart individual, and many people have pointed this out to me many, many times. I actually felt the scarier of the 2 games to me in some ways was USC, because they're the sort of team that is just long, athletic. They're not particularly skilled, but that doesn't stop them from throwing up a bunch of shots, which doesn't always mean that they will clang off of the backboard like they did much of the second half.
Right.
I'm probably more worried about this USC game than this UCLA game. Now that Nebraska has won with yet another double-digit effort in their wins that they've compiled this year, I can turn my attention to, oh no, UCLA is coming off of a loss and coming home and blah 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 blah. But genuinely, Kaleb, this USC game was a concern to me, and in no short part because these are the sort of teams that I think Nebraska struggles with the most when they're just really athletic and they can kind of defend you in a way that forces you to have to play maybe a bit of a different style. Maybe you don't get to be as aesthetically pleasing as you want to be on offense. Nebraska found a way to be aesthetically pleasing. They also found a way to get to the rim. And once they stopped missing 2-footers, they found a way to put USC in the dirt.
Yeah, you had just about everybody who was on the floor at some point drove into the paint, and so you were able to get in there, and by doing so, you were also drawing more fouls. So you were able to get to the free throw line while you're also getting a heater from Sanford, who hits another 5 threes in the game. Frager comes off the bench as he does and scores another 15 or 17, whatever it was. And you got your 30 piece from Sanford. You had foul trouble in the first half for Sam Hoiberg. So that kind of, you wonder how much that messed with the mentality for the team on ball handlers that were out there. You saw USC take advantage of it and go up by 5 at halftime. But then you have the second best scorer for the Trojans sitting in the crowd and apparently quitting or quiet quitting or whatever it was, and now he's off the team. Like, you can't plan for that, when you're going into a game, you're like, okay, here's the guys, here's what's happening at halftime, and then Fred Hoiberg and the guys come out and they're like, wait, he's not playing? He's okay. Time to just run away with this. But you're right, getting into the paint was big. The rebounding, like Nebraska dominated,
really good.
And especially on the offensive end, to where you're able to go get so many second chance points. You're able to get so many more shots than the other team up. And you're shooting at a good enough clip that you didn't need extra shots. But if you're going to get extra shots, that's what leads to a 51-31 second half. I can kind of get what you're saying of the more dangerous of the two with USC, UCLA. Maybe you're looking ahead to UCLA. But it's still, when you look over the course of the season, to me, it was, you have to take care of business against USC, and then you see what happens against UCLA so that you at least split, because not one team has been ahead of UCLA at the end of regulation all year. Not a single team. It took overtime for Indiana, but nobody has been ahead of the Bruins at home all season at the end of regulation, at the end of 40 minutes.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're definitely going to be good at home. I can't explain what it is. There was something about this USC game that I thought was, because I think everyone was so focused on UCLA.
Yeah.
And it's easy, and I do this too. It's easy to dunk on Mick Cronin. He makes himself a giant target over and over and over. And Nebraska hadn't beaten a team as good as USC since probably Washington. And so that was an element of it to me as well. And so I appreciated that they were able to take care of it. And this again speaks to how comfortable I feel with this team. Even though they didn't play like a great first half, there was no part of me that felt like, oh, they're going to lose this game. There's something about this team where it's like, well, they're going to be better in the second half, and they have in pretty much every game except Illinois and Michigan. And the Michigan game, whatever, we'll leave that where it is. But and those are two very different teams than most of what's going to be on your schedule. I felt like there was no way USC was going to sustain what they had been doing, and Nebraska wasn't going to keep missing at the rim like that if they were going to get those opportunities. Right. And you mentioned the rebounding, and I talked about this with Damon Benning on the Nebraska Ball Tuesday show last week. I talked about it, multiple times, wherever anyone let me talk about Nebraska basketball. The thing about Frager that I have appreciated over the last probably 4 games or so, he's become very aggressive rebounding. And it's like, okay, I may not affect the team how I want on the offensive end every time out. And there's always going to be people who just want to dog on my defense, even though I think he's better than probably what he gets credit for. He does, when it looks bad, it looks really bad. That's kind of part of it. However, one of the things that he can control, and at his size and with his length, he can be an asset, and that's just go get rebounds. And he started doing it on the offensive end, and it has been really noticeable how it has allowed him to maybe start slowly in some games, go collect a few rebounds, get a feel for the environment, and then you look up and he's like, "Oh, there's a basket, there's a basket, there's a basket, there's a basket." I think one of the cool things that you get to see when you're talking about the course of a season is that when we saw Frager in November and in December, it was like, okay, he can be a scorer. And then it's all right, he might be a really good spot up shooter, or this is a guy that can take someone off the dribble and throw it down. And now it's like, oh, like he's long enough that he's kind of a problem when he plays pretty good defense. And he's physical enough that he's going to go get some rebounds, get hammered in the head, turn and look at the official and wonder what has to happen for me to get a foul call here, and then flip the ball off to Jamarcus or Sam or take it up the court himself. So I just think Frager has done such a nice job in this role that he's in right now, and it's really valuable. And I think some of that comes from you watch guys like Hoiberg and Jacobson maximize every time that they're on the court, and even when they're not scoring, they're able to affect the game. There's no way that a guy like Frager, who's as smart of a basketball player as he is, can't see that when he's watching film every week or isn't hearing it from those coaches. And when you find a bunch of guys who are like, all right, how can I help this team if it's not on the offensive end or if it's whatever it is? And then they all just kind of start doing it. Like, I mean, Berkay affects games a lot and he doesn't score. He does it because he's just sort of the nasty business guy on this team. And like, it's just it's impressive when you get guys to play that way. Like it raises your ceiling, even if you're not the most athletically gifted team in the gym most nights, and Nebraska isn't.
Yeah, when you had kind of your rotation out there and you had Frager, even pre-injury, it was, okay, you probably want to attack him. If you're going to have a one-on-one, you want to attack him. Then you had the injury happen. And then it became just like, it was a bad game against Iowa. It was almost Olay defense there for a while. But since then, it was like something flipped in that one where it was like, I don't want this narrative. I don't want this held against me. The effort and energy defensively has gone through the roof for him. The decision to be a rebounder, because that's the part, and maybe it's because he got the spot start for Berkay being out a couple games ago, where it was, okay, what do I need to do to make up for Berkay? Well, okay, Berkay grabs rebounds and plays really good defense on top of, for me being Braden Frager, I'm going to score the basketball. Okay, you add those other pieces, and you get a really well-rounded player whose ceiling just became much, much higher because of him playing defense and grabbing rebounds, and not just, is he open in the three for a corner or can he go get a dunk in a game? Like it takes him from really good to special. And if you can have special coming off the bench, that's nice to have this time of year.
Especially when you can pair that up with special in Sanford, who's just like, what I did the previous game? What if I do that and better, but against a better team? And it just, I've like run out of ways to describe how I'm just in awe of sort of the absolute breakout that we've witnessed from this player. And I've joked, on formats similar to this one back in April of last year, and he commits, and it's like, okay, that's great. And I'm excited for it because it doesn't, basically in my head, it's like, well, it gives you something that isn't Connor Essegian, which I don't hate. And,
right.
I'm also saying things like, he can't be the best player you get in this cycle, and then turns out he probably is, and then has become the best player on a team where you have a lot of guys that are good at a lot of different things. And what Sanford seems to have really picked up is this ability to just zero in and become a flamethrower, whether it's shooting outside. In that cinematic video, I'm sure you watched it, that came out yesterday. There's a layup that we saw on the broadcast angle, but because BTN's contractually obligated to never show replays of anything unless it's Gilbert Arenas' kid landing awkwardly on his foot. He had this awesome under the basket layup where he goes from the top of the key, works past someone, spins off of someone else, ducks under a defender and lays it off of the glass. and you watch it happen from the cinematic floor angle, and it's like, whoa, like this dude has some stuff that you see it from the broadcast angle, and it's like, hey, tall, lanky guy used his length to get extension to put it off the glass. No, he exploded past two people and under another and then put it in. Like it was really, really well done. Just
I
really
think
well done. He's so good.
Well, when you go back to okay, what are you getting in this transfer portal cycle? Maybe because we had seen Connor Essegian come in and we had seen other guys come in, and it was like, okay, they're going to be a spot up shooter. But what else? Because you can only have so many just spot up shooters, and it would be interesting to see what does it look like with this offense and this cast of characters, and to bring a healthy Essegian off the bench to make 2 to 3 a game in 15 minutes. Like what does that do? What would his defense look like within this rotation? We'll find out next year, but it'll look a little bit different without guys like Rink and Sam and Jamarcus. And maybe Price, depending on what NBA teams tell him when he explores that draft process. But for Price to come in and not just be lightning fast spot up shooter, but to make a decision to play really good defense, buy in completely to what Nate Lenzer is preaching, pass the ball extremely well, run for miles and miles and miles, and not just shooting from beyond the arc, but getting into the paint, finishing at the rim. That's been a giant difference for him in his scoring. If you're going to chase him and you're going to hold, eventually he's going to put the ball on the floor and score in the paint on you. And he's going to get up a little floater. He's going to get to the rim. He's going to get to the free throw line. That's how you get to 30 points. And it's not just, did you make 8 threes?
Yeah. I mean, it's just remarkable because I had no idea he was this level of scorer. I didn't really know it until the Illinois game where it's like, oh, they keep over pursuing to try to chase him off the 3-point line. He's like, I'll just go inside and take a shot here over and over. And so, if it works, why stop doing it? And there's times this year where it's like, hey, I wish you'd stop settling, or not settling, but I wish you'd stop hunting the three. Like try to, if they're pushing you further out, start working yourself in, start forcing the ball inside a little bit more, and just see if you could draw contact, see if you can get an opportunity that way. And I think we've seen some corrections in that regard. I mean, obviously every team sets out trying to take them away. Like that's the thing. They go into every game now where Price Sanford is the number one thing that you're trying to take away from Nebraska basketball. And in order to do that, you have to play defense in a certain way. And that means it should open up other things for guys like Frager and Jamarcus Lawrence and Sam Hoiberg and Rick Mast and whatever else. But it doesn't mean that you can just do it. Like it's easy to say it. It's a lot harder to do what Iowa did. And that required Nebraska to be off their game in a variety of ways. Nebraska to not adjust. And I think, frankly, Nebraska did not show up and play with the attitude that they probably needed to at the start of that game to really give themselves the best chance. And so, we'll get to revisit that conversation when they play them here at the end of this week on what seems like it's going to be quite a raucous environment on Sunday, which, it's one thing, it's Iowa. It's another, it's going to be Sam Hoiberg's final home game at Nebraska as he's become the most popular guy on this team. It's going to be Rink Mast's final game, Jamarcus Lawrence's final game. It could be Price Sanford's final game. It could be any number of players' final games. I mean, I think a lot of these guys that can come back are slated to come back.
Yeah.
But the emotion in that arena is going to be quite something. And then Nebraska's still got a lot to play for. I mean, even though it feels like, as we're calling it on the Happer and Schaefer show, the super mega buy, they're very close to locking that up. But they have a chance if they can get to 27-4. One, it's the best regular season. It already is the best regular season in Nebraska basketball history. It could be the most wins, or right there with the most wins for Nebraska basketball. And you finish out with 3 straight wins against USC, UCLA, and Iowa. It's going to be real hard to keep you. We're talking fringe 2 seed, maybe the top 3 seed. It's going to be hard to keep you out of one of the more regional locations when we talk about the NCAA tournament. Plus, You get to be the 2 in the Big Ten tournament, which means you don't have to face Michigan until the earliest you'd see them is a championship game. I don't know if you played around with the website where you get to do all of this stuff.
Oh, we've all played around with it.
I created my most favorite bracket ever, which basically just has, Nebraska the only teams that would be in their path would be like Indiana, Ohio State, Michigan State, and whoever Michigan State potentially could lose to on the other side of it. And it's like, how do I sign up for this? Can I just pay? Can I pay BTN right now?
Like this.
Yeah. Like I'm good with this. Let's just let's get everybody some rest here. But it's a lot to play for. A lot, I think, that is going right for Nebraska basketball in this moment. So I don't have a lot more to add. I want to say this. If you're a routine listener, if you just happen to be stopping by, you're going to want to check out tomorrow's Nebraska Ball Tuesday episode. I'm going to have Pat Norris, the equipment manager for Nebraska basketball, is going to join us. We're going to talk about his socks. He wears a lot of crazy socks. We're just going to get a lot of stories, I think, from Pat Norris and just kind of what it's been like to be on the bench during this entire run as someone who, I've gotten to know Pat a little bit away from the court, and he's a guy that's been within this program for a long time. And so he's been around it. And I think he felt like last year there was a possibility, maybe not to the level that they're playing right now, but it just felt like, hey, these guys are better than how they're playing. And I'm curious at what point he thought this group had a chance to do something special. So Pat Norris will be joining on a Nebraska Ball Tuesday. He's going to be joining from out in Los Angeles. So it's going to be a little bit different of a show, I'm guessing. But I think it's going to be a ton of fun. So I just wanted to give that a bit of a plug. Let's just go straight into –
That's a really good get, Schaefer. That will definitely make tomorrow the Husker Hoop Central of the week on what show people need to listen to.
Yeah, Husker Hoop Central. I feel like I've heard that before.
Husker Hoop Central. Husker Hoop Central. Husker Hoop Central. I'm just trying to win. You're
just setting this thing out there at a really high level. Nobody else really had any idea what's happening with that, but
they don't have to. That's for me. And sometimes those are the best bits. They're just for me.
The ones that you want to get. Yeah, that's fair. All right. Well, here's a bit that I keep employing that I don't even know if people enjoy anymore, but I'm going to keep doing it as long as I come up with the ideas. We're going to do some blind rankings. Yeah. And I mentioned spring narratives is going to be the topic. We're going to talk a lot of Nebraska football coming on the other side of the blind rankings. We're going to talk about it through the blind rankings. And today's blind rankings, Kaleb can determine how he wants to scale it. Is 5 the least annoying of the spring narratives? Is 1 the most annoying? Is 1 the spring narrative he believes in the most? Is 5 the one that he believes in the least? I don't know. Do you know how you want to tier this thing?
Yeah, I'm going to go with 1 is the one that I'm buying into the most. Okay. I would buy into the most.
Cool. And I think, people might be like, what do you mean by spring narratives? I think you'll understand when I start telling you.
It'll be pretty quick.
Spring narrative topic number 1. This group actually likes each other. At some point, whether it's the spring or whether it's the summer, you will be doing an interview and someone will talk about how close-knit this team is, or particular their position group, and that these guys have been hanging out and spending a bunch of time together, and they don't want to speak ill of anybody that was there before, but it feels like they're really close. They're, and the word in basketball is always connected, but it makes a little bit more sense with how they play and everything. Other than the offensive line, connected doesn't really work that much in football. Maybe defensive line could get that too. But you know this when you hear it from the players. So I call this particular one, this group really likes each other. Where are you putting this one, Kaleb?
5. What does it matter if they like each other? They can all be assholes. They just have to play good football.
Hey. Bryce Harper and Gene Segura had a moment, I guess, at some point that we've discussed on the morning show and happened in the past. And then they came together to not really do anything that much for the Phillies, but they won some games. So
yeah,
I don't know. But every year I learn about how much closer the brotherhood has become, even though that didn't necessarily directly correlate to more wins. So you're putting that at 5.
Is it nice when people like each other and their success, and there's look at the basketball team right now? It's nice when you see they all clearly like each other. You see it with volleyball. It's like, oh, this group clearly enjoys being around each other. It raises everyone's level. For football, there's over 100 of you. I guarantee you don't all like each other. All right. And that's fine. You just have to get along and perform well together when you're hitting people in a very violent sport. You liking each other and being connected. Great if you're the quarterback and watching where your receiver's going to go and you guys get some mental pathways built there. But across the board, I don't really care that you like each other. I also don't think it necessarily makes you that much better of a Division I football team.
Yeah, well, it hasn't led to more wins in the last 10 years or so, as I've been hearing this one more and more. All right, how about this one? And again, I'm going to say it in a generic, but you know it when you see it or hear it, I guess is more. You don't get to see it a whole lot. They've simplified the scheme. They've made it easier. They've taken the stuff out of the playbook that wasn't working and only replaced it with the stuff in the playbook that works. They've gotten rid of all the extra verbiage, and now they're only saying words like tackle, throw, catch, run. Your thoughts?
4. I feel like on all of these, I'm just going to go, what's the last place I have available? But 4,
Right.
especially because we just heard Dana Holgerson say, well, it took until game 6 to even know what we were good at. All right, well, what was the verbiage you used before that? What
did you use that long to
that?
figure out that Emmett Johnson was what you were good at?
And almost nothing in screens. Like if you got the lateral screen to Isaiah Hunter, that was probably pretty good. So how do you hunt that? And how do you hunt outside zone with Emmett Johnson? Those are your 2 plays.
I'm going to say it's a little concerning that you got to game 6, you figured out what you were good at, then your scoring average started to plummet right after that.
Yeah.
You do you, Dana.
Right. So yeah, it's okay, great. But you're also, while you're paring down or whatever you're doing to the playbook, you should be going through and saying, how do we perfect whatever playbook we have at this time of year? And you have so many new faces on the roster, offensively and defensively, and you have a whole new system defensively. So it's not like you're simplifying anything there. You're just trying to get it installed. But on the offensive side of the ball, you're going to have a new QB1. Don't let anyone tell you that there's actually a competition. Calandria is going to be your quarterback. Sorry, ESPN, I think it was ESPN who tried to say that that's one of the top quarterback competitions in the country. And I was like, did you talk to anybody? Talk to just one person. Find one of the spam accounts for the Huskers, and they'll tell you exactly whether or not there's a quarterback competition. Like, you have to teach him the offense, but also you have to figure out what he's good at. So how much are you simplifying, or are you just modifying? Like, you're doing the same thing every year with the playbook, trying to maximize the talent you have available.
Yep, no doubt about it. All right. What do you think about this one? The offensive line and defensive line are really battling each other, and both sides are coming out on top.
No shit. Like, what you guys should be battling each other. I guess that's going to be number 3. We'll put that back at 3. Like, of course,
I may not have explained that one exactly how I mean, but it's like when you talk to a defensive lineman and he talks about how improved the offensive line seems to be, and that they're winning some of the time, and that you're winning some of the time. That's kind of what I'm getting at here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it's like, cool. That will continue for the next month. And then we will hear you say that same thing in the fall. And then at some point, we will get you midway through the season. It'll be like, hey, how's this offensive line? Well, there are a couple of times I got the best of him, but he's doing really well over there. Yeah, that's what happens. The offensive line wins sometimes, and the defensive line wins sometimes. And you're battling, and you're giving it your best effort. Great narrative. Like, give me some more.
Yeah, that's what you get. You're getting that one. All right, you're also getting this. We are more aggressive at this position than we've ever been. Whether that's going to be the defensive line with blitzing, or the linebackers with blitzing, the defensive line is getting up the field faster, whether that's going to be more aggressive and taking shots downfield from a passing perspective. Whatever it is, they're going to be more aggressive.
Like, what? But what is that supposed to mean when you get to a game? And that's why these are spring narratives. It's like, what does that actually look like when you get to the game? Because in March, You can be more aggressive. DEAGGRESSIVE. Yeah, that's right. I remember all the cheers and stuff back in the day. You're welcome, Loop City High School. But so you're doing something in March and you're going, okay, in this practice session, we're running more blitz concepts. In this practice session, there's more go routes. But when you get to the games, you're not like what we've seen from Dana Holgorsen, like you're not calling those. Some of that being personnel, some of that being trust, some of that being a game plan to not turn the ball over. And then defensively, it's a completely new defensive system. So if they're blitzing more or not, like, I don't really know. I didn't watch a lot of San Diego State. So sure, they'll probably blitz more than John Butler wanted them to this last year, where it was very bend and bend and bend and keep bending, and then that's broken. Like so yeah, I get it. They're more aggressive right now, but also there's no negative to being more aggressive with what you're doing. There's no you're not risking anything by being more aggressive in March.
I don't even remember if you put that one at 1 or 2.
Whatever's 2, whatever's the lowest available is what each of these is getting.
All right. That's been good. All right. Last one. New position coach has made an immediate difference.
I buy into that. Out of any of those, so
I figured this was going to be one because you can actually correlate it to things we've seen.
Yeah, because you can immediately go, okay, defensive line guys, or someone talking about pass rush. Oh, this looks different. Seeing guys try to beat an offensive lineman, or offensive lineman being there and going, this looks different in the way that they are protecting the quarterback, not just because of who's back there, but the connectedness, how much they like each other. That it's really working because of the new position coach. I will give that one. I'm glad we saved that one and I left the spot available. That would be the one out of any of those I would actually buy into.
Do you think you're the first person in show history to go backwards from 5 to 1?
It's tough.
You got that going for you.
It's tough. It's one of those I can get like a Husker Hoops Central medal or something out of that one because not a lot of people are doing it, but it's successful.
Do they give out medals?
They should. We should. Can I get a ribbon at least?
Shout out to who's ever tracking this on your end of things here. I don't know where we're at this point, but congrats to that person. All right, let's get into what Matt Rule and company had to say. So they had another media availability, and what are we, 3 practices down? Two?
So they went Tuesday because they'd said they went pads Tuesday, Thursday, and then Saturday. So that was 3 already. And then they had practiced the Saturday before. So I think we're through 4 practices,
wow.
I believe.
All right.
Because they're gonna take a week off here coming up also.
Because what are they doing, like 8-8 or 7-8 or whatever it would be?
Yeah, whatever it is. And you include the spring game as one of their 15.
Sure. So what's your biggest takeaway a couple BD appearances in so far? We've heard from some of the new players. We've heard from, some of the new coaches. We've heard from Matt Rule a couple times. Where are you at after 4 practices, 3 media appearances? Biggest takeaway you have right now is blank.
They're still trying to see how all the pieces fit together, which is perfectly normal. That's not a
what you would expect.
Yeah, that's not even a transfer portal world, NIL world. This would have been the case 10 years ago too. Is okay, how did these pieces work together if you've lost some to graduation or injury, or you still had transfers a decade ago? That still happened too. But now it's, what do the pieces look like with most likely 3 out of 5 new starters that you brought in from the transfer portal? How do these pieces fit? New position coach, new quarterback, potentially another top 3 wideout. What does it look like with the offense and Dana Holgorsen? You're trying to run in a bunch of running backs who, it's not new pieces. you got a jump start on that because Emmett Johnson turned pro. So you got the whole month after Iowa to work with those. But what does it look like now with those guys and your new quarterback and new weapons and a new whatever you're doing offensively because of a new offensive coach? And then defensively, it's what does it look like now with the new system? How do these pieces work together with what Rob Orich wants to do? And special teams is they're gonna go kick, right now. Like, you're not doing a whole lot of stuff where it's punt coverage and in field goal block and those types of things. But to me, it's a very normal thing. What does it look like a week and a half into spring ball or whatever with the pieces that are out there? How much are those guys able to take what they're learning and put it into practice? Take it from, this is what the coach wants me to do, and go out and do it. And the quicker they can do that, then they can install more. So it's that's kind of what you've heard from a lot of coaches, and especially like Dana Holgerson, where he's like, I don't know what we have. Like, for all the things that he says, he's very upfront about that and saying, we don't know what the product is on the field. You just have to see it more. And that's what this time of year is for.
What have you heard so far about Calandria? That's obviously going to be a talking point. Anthony Calandria. I should use first and last names here, just so in case someone had no idea that Nebraska had a quarterback whose name was Calandria, they would know. But so Anthony Calandria transfers from UNLV. He's had 4 practices so far. He's been with this group in the offseason. They've talked sort of about, they like his approach and his leadership. And I know that there's been plenty of talk of his sort of style. And I think part of that style is he's a very confident individual, which is maybe something you could argue Nebraska lacked, in the sense that it felt like, you could use a guy who believed that he could take on the world, by himself, that kind of thing. What have you made of how he's been talked about, and how much stock? Because obviously it's always going to sound good, right? But like, what are the things that are important to you to hear about an Anthony Calandria this spring? As Husker Berserker says, I could just say AC. I don't know if I'm going to do that. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Yeah,
Can we just say Tony?
I call him Tony. I don't know how he feels about that, but you may not have a choice either.
Iron Man, Tony Stark. Like, that feels pretty good. Anyway, Rule called it energy. Ja'Cory Barney called it swag. The thing that you're kind of getting consistency
that lines up. I'm going to say that 1-to-1 lines up. I like
not the other way around. Rule calls it swag, and Ja'Cory Barney calls it energy.
Swag. That would be concerning.
That's backwards hat Matt. Backwards hat Matt would have called it swag.
We do not want to hear from backwards hat Matt in 2026. I think that's a everyone handshake meme on that one.
But the thing that's consistent when you're talking to these guys is, yes, the confidence he has in himself, which is absolutely what you need at that position. But the thing that stands out to me that I'm going to be most interested in seeing when we do get to see some practice, when we get to the spring game, like, you'll see a little bit of it, but when we get to the fall and we get to games, what does it look like when he's off schedule, when he has to escape the pocket and make a play, whether he's running downfield or he's just extending the play and then he passes it? That's the part that, it excites me. Because you haven't really had that. Dylan Raiola made a lot of really good passes that were off schedule. That was not the play. The sidearm stuff, fitting stuff in, but he wasn't taking a lot of risks. So that's where interceptions were down. That's what are your pros and cons with what you're doing? Calandria takes the risks. It's more Brett Favre. It's more gunslinger. It's I'm going to get out and see what I can do and make happen. So that's a consistent thing that you've heard from guys, is that he does that at a high level, and he almost thrives more in doing that than the 3 steps and get the ball out.
Yeah, which it's tough because it's hard to build your offense around things being off schedule.
Right.
You'd much rather have consistency, but at the same time, because so much of football is reacting to what happens to you have to have that, balance of being able to run when you're on schedule, or run the things that you're asked to run when you're on schedule, But if you're not on schedule, have the ability to make something out of it,
Yep.
which is where Dylan Raiola clearly lacked. Nebraska's offense lacked last year. I think if they could stay on schedule all the time, they would have been fine up until a point. But clearly, that's just not how football has been played. Well, so I mentioned Calandra. Has there been any of the newcomers that you've heard about where you're like, this is maybe I didn't expect that, or that was interesting. It hadn't been a consideration of mine. Or has it largely been what you would expect to hear in these sort of situations?
It's largely been what I would expect to hear. I'm still interested in guys, and we heard from him a little bit with Owen Chambliss. What do things look like for some of these defensive guys, and what does the defensive lineup look like in the new system? That's just not anything we've been able to see, and we won't get a lot of good looks at. And I would expect everything we hear from position coaches and from players is that it's going really, really well, because that's what you say this time of year. But that's the thing that I'm most interested in, is if we could get like 100% honesty and be like, oh, these guys absolutely 100% believe in this and it's working, or this didn't really work until X happened. Like, those are the things that I would love to be able to hear and flesh out more.
Yeah. And I mean, unfortunately, there's just not going to be an opportunity to really see what they have, until we get the spring game. And even then, I expect that to be pared down to a degree. And that's all fine. I mean, there's an element of the way that Nebraska is set up this year where I think they can operate well within the doubt that will be there, because they're going to have a nice long runway. Those 3 games where you get an opportunity to sort of figure out what you do well. You can create some new players on offense if you're Dana Holgerson, or, you hope that's the idea.
Yeah.
And I don't even mean to be glib with saying that, but it's like, okay, if it's Mekhi Nelson and Isaiah Mosey, you get these 3 games at the beginning of the year to see what you get to work with by the time the Big Ten rolls around. You get to see, Quasi Gilmer is one of the guys that talked. He's sort of, I don't know what to do with him. I've toyed with the idea of having, whether it be you or Tim or somebody, just kind of, now that we're 4 or 5 practices in, just start ranking how you think the value turns out in terms of these portal guys with what they're talking about and everything else. Gilmer's one of these where it's like, I already liked the wide receiver room before they had him. Now you have this other veteran wide receiver, and I still really like it, but I don't know if you're going to get Samari Toure 2021, if you're going to get Conavai Noah 2019, or if you're going to get, Dane Key here in 2025. Those are four. Good math by me. Those are 3 very different 1-year seasons from veteran wide receivers. And so, it's probably somewhere in between the Toure and the Key is what the expectation would be, because it's someone they clearly like. They sought him out. And I don't think they had to do that because they like a lot of their young wide receivers. But again, I'm just sort of interested in what that picture looks like, and we're just not going to know. Like, we're going to have no idea. Like, I love Ja'Cory Barney. I think Ja'Cory Barney's really talented and has been wasted for 2 years at Nebraska. I want to see him be the best version of what he can be, but I could also totally understand if someone's like, well, yeah, he's just like the 3rd best or 4th best wide receiver that Nebraska has. I think it's because they've done him a disservice with what his talent is. There's just so many guys like that on this roster where I think there's more here, but I'm not entirely confident that this group of coaches or this system is going to allow us to see it. I'm just constantly walking away with, this is why they underachieve or have underachieved. Doesn't mean that they have to, but I don't know how we're going to have any better feeling on these things until we get to the fall.
Yeah, so much of those offensive playmakers is, can you one, get them the ball, and then get them the ball in space? Ja'Cory Barney gets hit harder than it seems like anyone has ever been hit in the game of football consistently, and he pops back up. But you found a way to get an Isaiah Hunter the ball on those screens and get him into space, and he's able to work. You obviously want to carry that over into this year, and you want to get Ja'Cory Barney the ball, and Gilmer gives you another weapon down there, and you get Janier and Bonner back. Like, can you find a way to get those guys on top of your other really talented underclassmen? Here's one that's been interesting on the offensive side of the ball. When you're talking about Isaiah Mosey and you're talking about Mekhi Nelson, how much does a freshman Jamal Rule go in and take snaps away from those guys at his size, the way that Matt Rule has talked about him, the way other guys have talked about him, that he's a bigger back. And if he's a bigger back, okay, is that immediately taking stuff away from Quentin Ives?
Right.
Is that taking some of these roles away? And then he grows into that in a way that you didn't go get a portal running back, but this guy clearly becomes one of your top two guys because of what you did bring back, even though he's out of high school and that you didn't go get somebody. Like, it seems like if there's someone on the offensive side who has a chance to come in as a newcomer and immediately move up the depth chart in a way that maybe wasn't expected 2 weeks ago before we started hearing from people, it's probably Jamal Rule.
Yeah, I mean, he's been fascinating because I know that staff loved him relative to his recruiting ranking a year ago. His style was one of which it's like he feels like he's kind of like a Big Ten back because he's not super flashy. And it's, this seems like it's damning with faint praise, I guess, but he feels like he could be a Minnesota running back in some ways, where it's like those guys just get downhill on you and they're not fast. They're not going to like completely bowl you over, but suddenly their 2-yard run turns into a 6-yard gain because you've had to do this over and over and over. But that's kind of what Jamal Rule seems like to me. Again, how quickly he can assimilate to being able to play D1 football, I don't know. One of the things Tim had said about him is he'd come in a little bigger than what I think the expectation. He had put on good weight in the off season. Not even
They
really.
said he's about to 210 now.
Yeah, which is there was talk that he might be coming in at 195. So if he's coming in at 210,
yeah,
clearly he has put himself in a great position to be involved in this. And frankly, if you had that feeling that this was going to be a possibility, then maybe that explains as much as anything why they didn't feel like they had to go out and get a transfer portal running back, because you like the idea of this freshman coming in and playing. Now, if we had a nickel for every time a freshman was supposed to come in and save poor recruiting at a position, we would have many nickels and probably be able to get ourselves something off of the overly priced value menus at fast foods. But
yes,
I don't want to put too much on Jamal Rule, but at the same time, if he can be part of that picture, that helps. Like, it makes me feel a little bit better about stuff because I just don't know what else to do with that running back room. Again, it's good that these things are happening this spring because a guy like that can sort of emerge in the spring and then can be able to hit the ground running in the fall is valuable for this Nebraska team at a position where, you don't really know what you're going to get there. And there's some other guys like that. There's some other linebackers. I mean, Tim's talked about him a lot. I'm very curious about what exactly Dexter Foster?
Foster.
I wanted to call him Dexter Lawrence, and I knew that wasn't right. That's an NFL defensive lineman. But Dexter Foster was mentioned, and some of this is they get asked about, right? So the coaches are going to talk about him. But he's someone I've had some real intrigue because I think his athletic profile is really high. And how that fits in this defense in a Rob Orich system with more linebackers and maybe some opportunity at playmaking. Just curious. And so that's kind of a name that I'm hoping to hear about a little bit more or hear, some good things about as we go through. All right, let's transition over to how we finish every Monday. We offer free advice for those that might need it, even if they don't necessarily realize it at this point in time. Here is some, just we'll get right off the bat, and we'll go with some free advice. I don't know exactly who needs to hear this, but we'll just say like amateur prognosticators of brackets.
Ooh,
do not, and I repeat, do not overvalue what playing in a conference tournament or even the conference tournament final means for the seeding in the NCAA tournament bracket. Nebraska's seed is more than likely going to be decided for the NCAA tournament before they ever play against whoever they play on the Friday of the Big Ten tournament. If they make a run to the championship game, if they are 30-4 after winning the Big Ten title, they may not go up a seed line at all. And that is not to say it doesn't help them in other ways. They could move from being like the third 3 seed to the 1-3 seed, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But I just kind of look back on it like a couple years ago, Illinois won the Big Ten and remained a 3 seed and was still the 12. They were the number 12 team. They were already a 3 seed coming into that tournament, won the Big Ten, and it did nothing for them. Now they didn't beat number 1 Purdue that year. So there's that. But it's just one of these things. Don't overinflate the value of the conference tournaments because the selection committee is almost not taking any of that into account at this point in time.
Well, yeah, because you get to that tournament and let's say Nebraska's a 2 seed, but every round that Nebraska plays, they're not facing the highest possible seed they could have because of upsets. Like you get to the championship and all of a sudden you're playing the 16 seed. All right, well, good for them because they're playing for their tournament hopes. But for you, you're not getting this massive resume booster if you win that game just because it would have an AQ next to you.
Yeah. And this isn't to say Nebraska shouldn't try to win the Big Ten tournament. They absolutely should. That would be something that's really cool and memorable from this season.
Yeah.
It's just to say, like, if they are 27-4 or 26-5 or 25-6, whatever it is, they will already pretty much have their seed by the time they even tip off that Friday night.
Yeah. Free advice for people consuming those prognostications. Take a deep breath and turn them off every now and then. Maybe this is free advice for myself, but it's very easy to go through and continuously check what every hundreds and hundreds of bracketologists that's out there, what they all have. Is Nebraska a 2? Is Nebraska a 4? What does Lenardi say? What does T3 say? What do my own numbers say? What am I looking at? It's very easy to get caught up in that. So the free advice is to 1, step away from that for a second, and 2, get back to just enjoying the ride. It's a very tough game in LA tomorrow night, 10 o'clock tip. I-80 Club is going to have a watch party. So make sure you come back to the YouTube channel, subscribe and turn on notifications for that so you can jump on with us. But enjoy this week because you're still in this season. You still know what the next game coming up is, and you're going to get a bloodthirsty, fiery PBA crowd on Sunday. But just enjoy where this is and the fact that we are talking about what is the difference between a 2 seed and a 3 seed and a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament, as opposed to talking about does Nebraska need to win one or both or make a run or win the Big Ten tournament to get into the NCAA tournament. Like, let's step back every now and then and continue to enjoy the run that this is.
Here's some free advice that my dad would often offer to me while I was standing on a pitching mound working through what was a rough inning during high school. Throw strikes. Have it, Nebraska baseball. That's all you really need. At some point, 25 walks in a 3-game series. I think that's what it was. Like, that can't happen. You got to be able to throw strikes. Now, you're playing a really good team and they can do some real damage to you. And I understand. I used to pitch. You don't want to just groove it to them. And yet at the same time, there is no one less popular in the entirety of a baseball park than the pitcher who continues to walk and put traffic on. Your teammates don't like you because they have to stand around for like 18 pitches while you walk somebody because you can't either put them away or let them put it in the field. The fans don't really care for it because it's boring. The players, on the other team, they're probably fine with it because it increases their ability to score. But at the same time, let's just find a way to eliminate some of these weekends. Now, these things happen. Look, there's every odd weekend or so, the pitching might get away from you. But again, I hated being told this when I was pitching. Nothing was more obvious to me. And yet here I am wanting to pass it on to a younger generation. Throw strikes. It makes everyone like you a little bit more.
That's why I liked having having my dad as my coach, because he pitched in college. So it wasn't ever throw strikes. It was just play catch. And I'm like, I'm probably going to groove one. Like just to feel like I threw one down the middle. This one's probably going to be very, very hittable. And no, just have fun. But it almost never was it just throw strikes,
No,
because there was a
that was
clear
the Jim Schaefer from the chain link fence.
there was a clear understanding from my coach dad. Just throw strikes was not the issue.
No.
We'll stick with Diamond Sports, and my free advice. We're all caught up into basketball, and you're getting into spring football. Jump on this train early, because this is a super regional hosting softball team we've got here at Nebraska.
Damn.
6-4 against ranked teams right now. One of the toughest schedules to this point in the season. Obviously, a long way to go. Need to take care of business across the Big Ten Conference. Can't have bad losses here and there. This is a super regional hosting, get back to Oklahoma City type of team with the way they are pitching and the way they are hitting, and it is phenomenal to see, as long as we can see, because broadcast, like TV partners, you got to find a way to get these games on the air. I love listening to Nate Rohr and what he's able to do with radio, but we got to be able to see some more of these, because I think Husker Nation and others across the country would be jumping on board so much more right now with what Rhonda Revelle has here in 2026.
Man, I love Rhonda Revelle. When there was talk of replacing her a couple years ago, I was not in support of such an idea. It's not like a huge limb that I'm stepping out on there, because she's been terrific, but you just got to let some of these coaches work through some of the down years and everything else. And obviously it helps when it comes together with a talent like Jordy Fromm, but at the same time, man, she had earned it well before then. And so I'm glad that they have another team like this and have an opportunity like this moving forward. Last thing for me, free advice, last home game on Sunday, Nebraska basketball. If you're in the building, just savor it a little bit. Like, this has been an incredible ride, and we don't know what is going to be next, and whether you're going to be there in Chicago for the Big Ten tournament or wherever they play in the NCAA tournament. Just like, it's not always the destination. Sometimes we have to remember that the journey is part of the whole experience too. And so when they win that first one, and it's not if, it's when, you'll get to have that moment too. But on Sunday, it's remembering everything that led to getting here. It's remembering that Sam Hoiberg got inserted into games with Sam Greisel and Derek Walker as his teammates. It's remembering that Jamarcus Lawrence needed to take a year away to have the opportunity to come back and appreciate what was at Nebraska, and for Nebraskans to appreciate what he can do. And Jamarcus has another level to his game that we haven't seen in a little while, that hopefully he finds, as Nebraska gets into tougher competition. It's remembering that Rink Mass very easily could have just chose to end his career at Nebraska after one season, but put in the work to come back to get to play another year. He sat out last year, that he has this opportunity. It's remembering that Kendall Blue chose to come to Nebraska, and even though it hasn't been the year that he would have wanted, he's made the most of the minutes that he gets. I'm sure he's a great practice guy for them over there. It's just remembering that sort of stuff. So if you're there in the building, if you're watching at home, if you're listening to Kent on the radio, soak it in. Let it be fun. Don't think about the end. Think about where you're at and how you got there.
And it's thinking about Husker Hoop Central,
which you can visit. It's a real website. All right, everybody. That's the cap on Unemployed with Mike Schaefer today. Kaleb Henry joining as always, as he does on a Monday. If you are listening, please like and subscribe wherever you listen on your podcast services. If you're watching on YouTube, we would love a 5-star rating. Thank you so much for checking out what we have going on here, checking out whatever we have going on with the I-80 Club. We have so much content coming, and this is going to be such a fun month. And I am so excited that, just a couple months into being able to do this, so we're 2 months down of doing shows, and it doesn't even feel like it just feels normal to me,
Yes.
being here and doing these shows. And so I'm super appreciative of everybody that has taken the time to listen, taking the time to watch all of that stuff. And, I certainly appreciative of being able to have a very, very consistent cast of characters, which includes Kaleb and Josh and Jack and Tim on Thursdays. And then all of these people who have donated their time for these Nebraska Ball Tuesdays, including tomorrow, Pat Norris. He's on the Nebraska bench. He may not ever get a chance to come in and play, but I guarantee he has thoughts and stories. And so we'll hear from him out in California ahead of Nebraska's game against UCLA on Tuesday. That'll be on a Nebraska Ball Tuesday. You're listening to Unemployed. We'll catch you tomorrow.